Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
What's up with this standard format? These are completely different decks from last week.
Most of them, they're still Orzo vampires. That's the one rock. That's the fixture. That's your, that's your anchor.
That was like the least exciting one last week, but it's just the one that's still there.
I don't know. It wasn't least exciting to me. I don't know. I like this Orzo vampire deck. I do suspect, though, that the format has evolved in a way that I think that the Orzo vampire deck is going to have to get its weight up. It's going to have to evolve to meet the breakout deck of this past weekend, which there's no two ways about it. Bant Scapeshift. I mean, Scapeshift is a macro archetype, but certainly Bant is the only really well-developed one at the moment. There's some promising leads, but Bant Scapeshift is going to really change the rules of it. It already has changed the rules of engagement in the format.
Oh my god!
And we saw one copy that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Right. And then throughout the week, it was just like a force, a growing wave. Because obviously, some number of people want to try the new hotness or whatever, and most of the time it's just a fad or a gimmick. It doesn't come together. But people made some really big advancements in the Scapeshift deck, and it just became more and more and more popular online throughout the week, culminating in this weekend where the majority of the players were not very well prepared for it, even though it ended up being the most popular deck on day 2. It was certainly not the most popular deck on day 1.
Well, that's the problem, right? When people are not prepared for it on day 1, a relatively unpopular deck just becomes the best performing deck in the tournament, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was not first, second, or third place on day 1. Day 2, however, it ends up, there's 17 copies, so it's the most populous deck, not by a huge margin. I think second place was 12. So it's the most populous deck on day 2. And notably the smallest North American Grand Prix in years. But anyway...
Since the Clawblade era?
So the Grand Prix... I remember a Grand Prix Denver I went to that was Lorwyn block constructed 11 years ago. It had more people than this one.
Hey, man. You could play with Bitter Blossom, I bet.
Yeah, or in my case, Crew... No, that wasn't until later. But it was a precursor to Cruel Ultimatum, 5-color control. Regardless, this weekend, still 600-plus people. Big event. The Scapeshift deck, despite, 17... It was 17 copies in day 2, and there was 119 people in day 2 or something like that. So, 14%, not an overwhelming amount, but certainly enough to raise eyebrows.
Yeah, but how many extra percentage points do you get as the Bant Scapeshift archetype when one of your pilots is Luis Scott Vargas?
Well, so... in the end, he switched actually from Orzo Vampires to Bant Scapeshift at the last minute.
Good choice.
But the 4 copies of Bant Scapeshift in the top 8, and just a fantastic showing. And Nathan Halliday finishing 11th with the Golas Scapeshift is no slouch either.
Yeah, I think we should talk about all the different Scapeshifts that were near the top of these standings in the Grand Prix, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well start with the champ. Luis's deck, I actually don't think it's as archetypal as some of the others in the top 8, but it's pretty close. I mean, a lot of players were talking about this update. Basically, the big jump forward was the removal of that elemental, the Risen Reef, which I completely agree with. And I mentioned last week that I'm just not a buyer of Risen Reef as the only elemental in your deck. I have to believe that you can do better with some combination of Circuitous Route, Grow from the Ashes, Elvish Rejuvenator, something, And sure enough, all the Bant Scapeshift decks in the top 8 continued in that theme, removing any of the Risen Reefs.
So Risen Reef, I think, is an overall more powerful card than Elvish Rejuvenator. But if all
it's more powerful than any of these cards.
It's just get
these accelerators,
7 or 8 land in play. Elvish Rejuvenator is much more consistent at doing that than Risen Reef, right?
Well, I just think Risen Reef, the reason it's so powerful is the elemental synergy. It scales in power proportion to how many elementals you have. If it's your only one, you don't have that many.
Yep.
But yeah, the Elvish Rejuvenator, you were saying, more reliable for the task at hand in the Scapeshift deck?
Yeah, I mean, if your goal in life is just to get... So let's talk about how this deck works, right? So this deck has 2 key cards that we talked a little bit about last week, right? One of them is obviously Scapeshift, which is known quantity in combo decks for many years, right? Instead of getting Valakuts, now its target is to get a new card from Core Set 2020, which is Field of the Dead, right? So Field of the Dead is a land that enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for colorless, but it has this additional long text, which is whenever Field of the Dead or another land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So the goal is to get a certain number of lands in play, right? So if you have any 7 lands and cast Scapeshift, you can get Field of the Dead and 6 different kinds of lands, right? So you have 7 total lands in play that are of different names, and then you're going to create a bunch of Field of the Dead triggers, right? That's kind of like the minimum cool thing that the deck does.
Right, and it's just for what it's worth. It's not trivial when your 7 lands include a Thornwood Falls, a Blossoming Sands, and a Tranquil Cove. An extra 3 life points may not seem like that big of a deal, but like let's say you're playing against a blue deck that has all flyers or whatever. All you need to do is live long enough to untap so that you can kill with this army of zombies. Well, if you've got 3 extra life, sometimes that's enough to make the difference.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. If you have 8 lands, right? So you get any 8 lands, and you cast the Scapeshift, then you can get 2 copies of Field of the Dead and 6 other ones. You're still going to meet the minimum condition of having 7 different land names, right? But you're going to get bonkers more triggers than you would have with only 1 Field of the Dead.
Yeah. I mean, the part of it is that when your lands are entering the battlefield, they don't need all your lands to have different names. They just need 7 or more total with different names. So if you have 8 land, you actually get 16 2/2 zombies, even though 2 of the lands are Field of the Deads.
Yep. So,
which is obviously just 32 were the stats, which is like a whole big game.
So there are multiple different strategies or color combinations you can play with Scapeshift, right? So they're all different color combinations. Obviously, all of them are some kind of green. I think that the thing that sets the Bant Scapeshift version apart is the presence of Teferi Time Raveler, which is 2.
Definitely.
Things. One of them is...
Oh, I think it is 3 major ones. But keep going, yeah.
Well, all right. So one of them is, you have Teferi in play. Your Scapeshift is very likely to resolve, right? The opponents can't easily counterspell you with Teferi Time Raveler in play. Secondly, you can do the trick where you can cast a sorcery not just only during your main phase. So you can do the Scapeshift and get all this power in play, let's say at the end of your opponent's turn, and then basically have like pseudo haste, or if they have some kind of wrath, that sorcery speed, they're not going to be able to sweep your 2/2s. So what's the third one, Patrick?
So the Teferi bounce ability is actually really important in a deck like this with so little removal. So you've got very few ways to interact. Like we see Luis has 2 Prison Realms. End. Right? So he's not actually very well equipped to solve problems. People people play with a variety of different possible permanents, and sometimes you want to buy yourself some time, so to speak. And the Teferi, as a form of interaction that also can always be used so productively, you can bounce your Hydroid Crassus or your Elvish Rejuvenator and actually continue. Like, you're just continuing to get some amount of extra cards that way.
That's so cool.
And
like you get a card just for bouncing the Rejuvenator, right? So draw a card. Now you replay the Rejuvenator and you get your acceleration and your 1/1 again.
And remember though that Hydroid Crassus scaling up so much is actually, it's going to really explode sometimes in this deck. You're talking about a deck with 4 Growth Spiral, 4 Circuitous Route, and 2 Grow from the Ashes. This deck is like 28 land plus 14 ways to find land, not even counting the scape shifts and then 8 card draw spells. It's almost entirely land, right? Even the Prison Realm lets you scry. But the amount of land you're going to end up with is so great that Hydroid Crassus is sometimes going to be just a really, really, really big X spell. And so if you've got a Teferi in play that can make the 2/2 Hydroid Crassus that you had to play earlier, if you can bounce it back to your hand and then drop it for 5, that's a big deal, particularly when you're drawing a card from the Teferi on the way in the first place. The other part, though, which is kind of just a minor thing with Teferi, is that it's not just about flashing down Scapeshift. Flashing down Circuitous Route is actually like a meaningful thing because like your opponent doesn't know what turn you're on in the race, right? It's not just, of course, when you have like, if you have 7 land, then you're Anna Teferi. They have to be prepared for the possibility that even like on your end step, they may do this, right? But if they just go turn 3 Teferi, already the pressure is on because they have no idea how many turns this game has. It may be the case that on turn 4, you flash down Circuitous Route on their end step, and now suddenly you're already at 7. They didn't know that the very next turn they were going to be under the gun. So they have to be preparing multiple turns in advance against the possibility, you know? And this is a deck with Arboreal Grazer. They can go turn 1 Arboreal Grazer, turn 2 Teferi, and then now what?
Well, yeah, I think that the Arboreal Grazer draws are meaningful, but just like if you go first turn Grazer, second turn Teferi, or you just go like third turn Teferi, land, tick up, pass, now in hindsight, it's pretty likely, depending on what lands the Scapeshift player has in play, you can predict them being Scapeshift. But there are a lot of decks that play Bant-colored lands and more, Teferi Time Raveler, and oftentimes Arboreal Grazer, right? There's no like guarantee you were playing this combo deck before this weekend, right? So they might have no clue that Circuitous Route at the end of their turn is even in the realm of possibility. Like they might be playing around a permission spell or a Frilled Mystic or something.
Another part of the equation is that you may actually be in spots where you want to flash Scapeshift without even killing. It's not what you want to do, but you see, Luis, like the other competitor, Luis has a blast zone. And there's going to be times where you flash, because of the way your opponent plays their turn, you end step Scapeshift, get Blast Zone, untap, and then you can use it so that whatever the problematic permanent is can be defeated. And incidentally, I mean, you're not happy to have lost your Scapeshift, but at least you now have perfect mana, whatever that looks like. Whether you want a Memorial to Genius to help keep things going, a Field of Ruin in Luis's case, an added piece of tech. He played Field of Ruin instead of Glacial Fortress to give him other outs against other people who were playing Field of the Dead decks.
Yeah, I mean,
I like Luis's. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Oh, I mean, it's Crucible of Worlds plus Field of Ruin. Like, if you get that, I mean, it's only a 1+1 combo, but if he ever gets it, he can really damage the opponent Scapeshift deck, right? Even if they have Teferi.
Yeah. Yeah, and the part of the defense is other people using Field of Ruin against you. But there's another part of the equation. You can loop Blast Zone over and over again every turn.
Yeah.
And you can loop Memorial to Genius in some scenarios. Probably not for that long, but you can.
That's pretty cute. I mean, it's slow, but it's cute.
Definitely. And then Luis also has a little bit of extra tech in his sideboard. Most of his sideboard was like fairly straightforward, pretty industry standard stuff here. The only other spice card here was the Deputy of Detention. Deputy of Detention, I think, is deceptively next level. You see, obviously that card was also 2 levels ago, but Deputy of Detention does a couple things. On the surface, it's like, oh, this is his answer to some permanents, right? Because this is a deck with not a lot of answers. Most of the other people were playing like Crushing Canopy or something. Luis has Deputy of Detention, which does something really interesting in the mirror.
You can get a lot of 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, right?
Right, exactly. I actually think that we're going to see a resurgence of Deputy of Detention. If I were playing white aggro, for instance, man, would I be packing Deputy of Detentions. They're good cards anyway, and very defensible in the abstract, but the ability to use Deputy of Detention against a deck that has 4 Hydra, 4 Time Traveler, and 4 Scapeshift for the Field of the Dead, Deputy of Detention, I think, is just a good man for the job.
I think I can do one better than that, Patrick. What if you were playing Hero and you had Deputy of Detention, right? Then now you're not stuck playing white aggro. You can be playing as a very Time Raveler deck with Dovin's Veto, but you see,
you can do that too.
The Deputy of Detention.
Yeah, if I were playing Hero, I would snap off 4 Deputy of Detention.
Yeah,
definitely. I just think there's some number of people playing that white deck, and I think it's a little underrated. I think it's actually going to have a decent week because I think that the combination of Deputy of Detention and Dovin's Veto along a very fast aggro plan is actually like a solid way to interact. But that said, I agree, Deputy of Detention definitely dope in the Esper deck too.
This deck, it just seems to me
what
like...
I
just want to say, this deck just seems to me like if you're not specifically prepared for it, like you don't have specifically cards that are good against the Scapeshift combo deck, you're like either a super fast beatdown deck or you're never going to win.
No. There is one weakness. There is one weakness, even if you don't try.
What's that?
The Simic Nexus deck. You see, even though Luis defeated Simic Nexus in the finals, as he would tell you, he was the way he sent me a text saying, "There's no justice in the world, but I'll take it." as though, like, to make clear, if there was any justice in the world, he would lose to the Simic Nexus deck. But there's no justice. He just got to Lucky Luis it up, and here we are. The Simic Nexus deck is actually a great matchup that the Scapeshift people haven't figured out how to win yet. The biggest thing that they were capitalizing on in the last week is that Scapeshift has been on the decline because 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago it was the big deck, and everybody's figured out they can make their decks better against it. And sure enough, this weekend we saw a big, diverse mix of different ways of attacking the Simic Nexus deck, and as a result, it wasn't overall that successful, but it did start to overperform. Those few Simic Nexus decks that got the find, that made their way deep enough to be able to inner circle where all the Scapeshift decks are. See, Simic Nexus deck just is meaningfully faster. Even though it looks like the Scapeshift deck is so turbo, you're like, oh, it could be just the case that... You see, when they both do their thing, the Scapeshift deck can root snare or just start taking all the turns. It's just faster. And then what's more, basically the Scapeshift deck is all in on Teferi. Teferi is incredible in this matchup. Absolutely breathtaking, and it's the most important card by far.
Yeah,
but that's their only trick.
Reclamation also, right?
Oh, yeah. And just the permission on the board. It's so crucial. But the problem is that that's all you have. You literally just have Teferi. Other than Teferi, the Simic Nexus deck tears you apart. They have Search for Azcanta. That's not good for you. They have more card draw than you. You have so much extra land, but you can't leverage it. It's like Valakut. If you're playing a modern Valakut deck that's just red-green Valakut, and you're up against a faster combo deck, they're just going to eat you alive, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I played like blue-green infect against Valakut many times, like back in Standard, and
Yeah.
it's even faster in Modern.
Yeah, and this one, it's not that it's that much faster, the Simic Nexus deck is. It's just that it's a full turn and a half faster, while also having more card draw and more meaningful interaction. So I think the Scapeshift decks are going to want to improve, but that is the one matchup here that if you weren't trying, like, you did kind of accidentally end up with a decent deck for the weekend.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, like, I mean, the Simic Flash deck must also be good against Scapeshift in general, right? If they don't have Teferi, don't you just have them dominated? Like, they ain't even block.
Well, the one thing, see, maybe. I don't know. It seems in my head like I would guess that the Simic Flash deck is advantaged, but I could imagine it being possible that you can grind them. Because remember, Field of the Dead is actually like a fantastic backup plan too. If the game just stretches.
Oh yeah, so you just play a land every turn, and you've got 28 lands, right? So you're
That said, in my head, it sure seems like you can even keep Teferi off the table a reasonable amount of the time. So I feel like, I mean, I haven't tested that matchup yet, but man, I feel like if I wanted, I think you can make a Simic Flash deck that beats Scapeshift, but
I think that just of the known Simic Flash decks, I would put my eggs in the basket of Simic Flash against Ban Scapeshift. And that's without trying. But I think everyone can try. That's the thing.
yeah, like for instance, it's not as good in the Simic Flash deck as it is in some of the other decks, but man, do I want to play Ashiok.
Same! That's exactly where my head was at. Like, if you have, I mean, I don't know if you want to play Ashiok.
Like Jessica, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you don't play a main deck. Maybe you do. I can imagine playing zero main deck and a bunch on the board, but I don't know that it's out of the question, particularly if you play a deck like Drew Stewart's Jeskai Super Friends deck that has 20 Planeswalkers already, including 4 Sark and the Masterless. I don't know that it's out of the question to play Ashiok in this deck.
Yeah, he's just got something to do, right?
Yeah, I mean,
He can trigger Saheeli.
well, there's other things that Ashiok does too. So, for instance, if you're Ashioking people, you're not just like it's not zero the amount that you can interfere with other stuff they might have been doing. Like Cavalier of Thorns is a card people play.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's also just that the searching. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, you can get a little value, sure, but I mean, I don't know that I like the Ashiok versus Cavalier of Thorns heads-up matchup. Yeah, Ashiok, slows Cavalier of Thorns down a little bit, but I think Cavalier often has the last laugh.
Fair.
But yeah, I think, like, obviously, even before the Scapeshift is online, Ashiok is messing with cards like Circuitous Route and Grow from the Ashes.
Dude, they can't flip their Search for Escanta. You keep exiling their graveyard.
Yeah, I think this card is phenomenal. I think, like, it's going to be great in Esper. I think it's going to be great in Jeskai. I'm wondering if, like sometimes the red decks like Splash Black or whatever. This might be too much black, but it's not. It's not.
It's all too off message. It's off message.
Orzhov.
No, but again, my worry there is whether it's off message enough that, like, you're talking about the sideboard.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you just play like a pretty good guy on turn 2, you can take turn 3 off to just summon your Ashiok, and you're probably going to win because you buy enough time with it, right? Like, just the presence of the Ashiok slows them down. They're
going to have to reimagine their deck because I think that, as currently configured, Ashiok's just too devastating for them.
The thing that I was thinking about was, like, Bant Scapeshift, in my imagination, right this second, is the strongest archetype in Standard, to the point that I think most of the other archetypes don't even matter. Like, what if you just played
nobody gets to update their deck lists,
Yeah.
I don't think it's close.
But yeah, but like we're talking about, I think A-Shark was literally the first thing that I thought of when I saw how successful this deck was. And I think if you are yourself Simic and you just play Ashiok, I think that's very defensible. It's easy to cast.
Yeah, yeah. I would try it. I mean, I think there's something to be said there. Like, I don't know even how all in you need to be either, because I think that it's so brutally devastating against these Scapeshift decks that even if it's just a couple copies, if you happen to draw, like, however much you have room for, if you can just play an Ashiok against these decks, they're so dominated.
Do you think it
that's one of the reasons why I like Luis. How fast? What is?
Like the Ashiok, right? Like, do you think like there's like an incentive? You just want to be like Grazer or Land of Werewolves on turn 1, Ashiok on turn 2? Is that a thing?
No,
That
no,
doesn't matter,
I don't think
right?
so. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it could potentially, if you can get it ahead by a turn, maybe you stop one extra land that they would get from a Growth from Ashes or something. But I think in general, even though there's a certain risk of them going turn 2 Growth Spiral on the play and then Circuitous Route before you even got a chance to play Ashiok, it's so breathtaking against them because it's even when they have that nut draw on the play and they have it all, you still stop their plan, their Scapeshift. You still make them have to beat you with Teferi or a 4/4 Crassus or something.
Yeah, and their deck doesn't really apply any pressure game 1 other than just like Hydroid Crassus is potentially a big guy, right?
Well, no, they just what they do is they start on turn 5 making it 2/2 every turn is what they do. From Field of the Dead.
It's probably not enough.
That's the real pressure. I don't think that's enough to beat Ashiok. I think that you also, it's not nothing that if you mill them for like 16 cards or whatever,
they might not even have the diversity of lands required to get you.
But I think Ashiok seems dope.
You want to talk about Drew Stewart's Jeskai Super Friends deck?
Although, hey, by the way, just one caveat.
Yeah.
If you're playing some Narset deck, Narset is not the cut for Ashiok. Cut anything else but Narset.
Who was talking about cutting Narset?
No, nobody's talking about it. I'm trying to get out ahead of it.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, for instance, when you look at Drew Stewart's deck, he's got Narset, Saheeli, Teferi. There's all these cards, right?
Yeah.
He's got so many different cards. Karn.
I mean,
don't cut the Narsets.
Karn is public enemy number 1 to me, and I'm looking sideways at this one copy of Jaya's Immolating Inferno main deck. Talk to me about this deck. Karn we're cutting. We're cutting at least one Karn, right?
Maybe. There's, like, you gotta admit, 14 threes is kind of a lot, right?
I don't like. That's just what this deck does, right?
I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but having a Lava Coil, a Lightning Strike, and 4 Shocks, maybe it's fine because maybe there's just not enough other people playing aggro. But I can't give you Jaya's Immolating Inferno.
I mean, this deck is only
maybe it's okay.
Lands, and there's no Mox. Why is there no Mox?
I don't know, man. I don't understand how this deck gets its land drops.
This is the moxiest deck ever, right? In Standard.
No, it's not ever, but this is pretty up there. I don't understand. I don't know, man. I think the Mox decks, it's different when you have a 2-drop, but this deck doesn't have any of the 2s. I could imagine not having Mox.
3/5, right? So you can go like Narset or Saheeli. Like Saheeli's a great 3/5, right? You're like Saheeli.
Sarkhan is a great 4-drop too.
Yeah, you're like immediately Mox and then immediately Sarkhan or Teferi off your Saheeli or off of your Narset. Like that's really powerful.
You Spell Pierce off of your Mox. Oh, you've already got 3 Spell Pierces.
I mean, actually, yeah. So like Saheeli Mox Go is sweet if you have Spell Pierce in your hand,
right?
Or even Shock in your hand. Yeah, this deck definitely needs Mox. And I don't understand how this 23 land deck with all of these 5s and 6s doesn't have a 3rd and 4th opt.
I do not believe that this is real. This is just not a real mana base. Like, this is not enough land.
Same. But 4 of the lands are interplanar beacon.
I'm telling you, this is not a 23 land 2 cantrip deck.
Yeah, I mean, I would be like comfortable around 25 plus Mox.
I was thinking 24 plus 2 Moxes.
Yeah, so we're within a Mox of each other. But we agree this is a little land light.
Yeah.
At least he's playing Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. The people who don't have any Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, but I mean, to be fair, Sarkin is insane in Jeskai Super Friends, but like, you're just life on hard mode. Like, Teferi is so good. What's so hard about landing Teferi and then just crushing your opponent with it?
He's got a Teferi.
Yeah, I said at least he has that. It's good.
Yeah.
So many people don't have one.
I'm just saying, he's got 7 5-drops, 2 6-drops, and Jaya's Immolating Inferno. This is so many expensive cards.
Yeah, but I would... I mean, never is a strong word, but I don't think I would be likely to Nova.
Dude, what's up with 2+2 Nova?
No,
I love 3+1 Clarion. I'm into that. 2+2 Nova. It's like I was already like, oh, you want to play 2 Novas, huh?
Yeah,
but then you want to play Nova. 2 more?
Not into it.
I love the Fry. I'm into Fry.
I love Fry.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good things going on here. I'm just saying the details I would sand off. Like, how do you feel about Legion War Boss? I hate
I love it. Oh, I still love it. That guy keeps coming in and out, and I think this week was a good on week. I like a couple Legion War Bosses, and I like the numbers being so small that they can't practically board against it.
Yeah? I think that's the exact reasons I hate it. Like, it's not reliable. Sometimes I'm just going to be like, oh, I don't even bother bringing it in. All right, I guess I will.
I don't know, man. I don't know. You see, I'm picturing maybe, like, I don't know. I guess I just... What are you imagining it dying to?
I just don't... It's just, like, clunky to me. Right? Like, on turn 3...
It's definitely clunky. No, it's clunky. There's no two ways about it. It's clunky.
Like, Saheeli and... I mean, I guess to what matchup you're in? I mean, I guess if you're playing the Mirror, Legion War Boss is insane, right? Like, it's super hard to deal with, and it's probably going to kill their Planeswalkers.
And remember, they can't just bounce Legion War Boss with Teferi. That doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
Because like they can just even if you didn't already have a token, you could just replay it, make a token immediately, and attack Teferi. Yeah,
he's solid that way, I suppose.
It's a good card. There's no question. He's a chunky fella. It's just yeah. Do
you know who I'm loving right now? But I don't think you can play it in this deck. It's a little aggro for this deck, but I think it's gonna make her a triumphant return before the format is up. Is Lightning Mare. Lightning Mare, you know, the poor red decks need to have a solution to Cerulean Drake. Lightning Mare that's like next level Cerulean Drake tech. It's also like 3 formats ago tech, right? Do you remember like that Japanese Grand Prix? It's just like, oh my god, who thought of the Lightning Mare? This is like the best tech ever against mono blue.
Dude, that's the key to Risen Reef coming back. It's just Lightning Mare as the elemental.
Oh. Whoa, in the Teamer version?
Yeah, but that's not exactly where Cerulean Drake is like killing you.
Well, I don't think you can Lightning Mare in this deck, but if you could, it would be insane. No one stops Lightning Mare. I like this archetype. I'd just play more land. And fewer Jaya's Immolating Inferno.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the amount of 2-drops in the board, though. Maybe less Cleansing Nova. Other Scapeshift decks, though, by the way, just to bounce back, there was we talked about how good of an X-Spell Hydroid Crassus is. I don't know if I don't think I'm a buyer of Alan Sun's Finale of Glory, because like it is sweet with Teferi. It definitely is sweet with Teferi. But I think that the situations where you have a Hydroid Crassus and a Teferi, it's not like as good as when you have the Finale of Glory and Teferi, but it might also be good enough. And I think that a Hydroid Crassus for 6 mana or 4 mana is just more impactful than Finale of Glory. But I don't know. I wanted to see your take because I could believe Finale of Glory. I could believe it.
I got Finale of Glory at an FNM last week. It was...
God bless you, man.
Absolutely suitable, right? Just bought him a turn, like he was behind, just bought him a turn, didn't kill him, and he just got the time necessary to not lose. It was on that turn he made 3 guys. It was meaningfully better than a Hydrate Crassus would have been. I mean, he also used the time from the Finale of Glory to draw 3 Hydrate Crassus, right? But I had a 4/4 Runaway Steamkin and
of course you did.
Of course I did, right? And Chandra Spitfire or something. It just bought him one turn I didn't attack. And it was I had to develop my board a little bit before I get an attack in, and then he beat me 3 turns later. I think that anyway, point being, I think that the card is often not very good, but it has its spots. It has its spots where it is it's exactly what you want. The problem is you can't really necessarily pick when those spots are for yourself.
Well, the other problem is that it makes a boatload of tutus. So when somebody was aiming for your Field of the Dead plan, they accidentally cover themselves against your Finale of Glory plan.
That's true. Nobody ever gets the Angels, right? I've never seen anybody get
No, you get the Angels. Not very often, but you could do it for 10 on their end step, and you're yes!
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I'll believe it when I see it, though.
Well, no, I mean, it's important, because if your opponent plays Field of the Dead, if your opponent Scapeshifts on their turn, you having flyers is But anyway, I don't think it comes up very often. So, what do you think of Time Wipe in the board? I like that.
Exactly where I was going. I think Time Wipe is so much better than Cleansing Nova would be in this deck, right? Just even if you can just pick up Hydrate Crassus or pick up Rejuvenator or anything, it's just nice.
Yeah, you can't really play the Cleansing Nova in this deck anyway because as long as you're using Prison Realm or Ixalan's Binding. But I just think Time Wipe's a more powerful card than Cleansing Nova.
I mean, think about it like this, right? If you have one of those games where you're Grazer into Circuitous Route or something like that, then you're already on 6-7 mana post the Circuitous Route, so you can Time Wipe and pick up your guy and replay it all that turn, just fluidly after the Circuitous Route to play the previous turn, and your opponent's probably pretty far behind if you make that play. It's certainly if you're making that play at instant speed, they're really in trouble now.
So, what did you think of Nathan Holliday's 11th place list? It's primarily a Sultai deck, but it splashes red and white mana in the form of a Temple Garden and a Stomping Ground so that you can goalless Tireless Pilgrim, Tron up, and then start Temporal Aperturing into next Tuesday.
So this deck has a similar kind of end game plan to the Bant Scapeshift deck of Scapeshift plus Field of the Dead, but its non-green color combination is just kind of the opposite, right? So it's got black instead of...
I mean, you're still using Growth Spiral and everything, but this one's definitely... even though it's got the black removal, Assassin's Trophy, Cast Down, Death Sprout even, to me the bigger distinction in this deck is the 4 Cavalier of Thorns, 3 Golos, Tireless Pilgrim package.
Oh, absolutely. Now, my favorite card in this deck is actually the Death Sprout, right? So
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm only medium minus on that one in this spot.
Well, the thing is, the Death Sprout gives you another way to kind of accelerate towards that 7 or 8 mana that you want, and it gives you some defense, right? So the fault of the Bant Scapeshift deck we were talking about first is not great at defending itself, right? It just has the best end game, and it can get to that end game relatively quickly because of all the land searching, mana acceleration type stuff. The Death Sprout gets you towards that end game, and it also kills their good guy. And I think like
Who has guys?
people have guys. People have like they might have a Golos Tyler Spiegelman play. But seriously, like it's 4. It accelerates you into like whatever, like 6, 7. You can
6, 7.
All right,
6
minimum. It gets you to 5, right?
Minimum it gets you to 5.
Minimum, right? So you're straight into Golos, right? If you're like end of turn, Death Sprout, and you miss your land drop, you can Golos or Cavalier of Thorns. If you make your land drop, you can Immortal Sun.
I mean, this deck is definitely more set up to play the backup plan of sorts. Like, it's always kind of on the backup plan. It's like you got removal from Assassin's Trophy and Cast Down earlier on instead of not. And then you've got Cavalier of Thorns and Golos being like... I mean, first you actually have Death Sprout as like... Instead of Circuitous Route, you have Death Sprout, right? So you have one less land from the route, but you have another kill card to slow them down, which then lets you play Cavalier of Thorns or Golos, which is then like just continuing your progression and starting to put some serious threats on the table.
Oh, I mean, here's the thing about Golos. Kill it. Just kill it.
Well, and if this deck ever gets up to 12, man, dropping Golos and using its ability in the same turn is a winning play. This deck, because Golos' activated ability in this deck is kind of like a draw 6. Like, you draw 3 cards, and then you get 3 Black Lotuses or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, the cards that you get could themselves be card advantage-y cards, right? This deck's full of them.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Also, like, there is a play pattern where you like have a discounted Golos also, right? Like if you have like Immortal Sun first.
True.
You don't need 12, right? You can do it.
The Immortal Sun makes your 7 land Scapeshift do 21 instead of 14. Yeah.
Oh, it also saves you from like any kind of Cry of Carnarium type cards. That's not bad.
Sure. There's a lot of other things too. It's a dope card.
I'm real surprised at how popular Cavalier of Thorns is. I mean, it just seems like, it's a pretty good card, but it's just like in all these different decks. It's like, I'm in Temur Elementals. I'm in this combo deck now.
I think part of it is the ability to have such an impact on the board where your 5/6 reach can actually outclass. First of all, you can stop flying attacks from even like a Lyra Dawnbringer, right? But you're frequently going to get the better of it against even a Tempest Djinn.
Yeah.
And so being able to buy yourself that kind of time with a card that's already advancing your game plan, well, at the same time, this death trigger is like super not trivial.
No.
Being able to just keep it going to make up for that lack of circuitous route. That said, I think this card is overplayed.
It's real popular. I can tell you, its passive ability to defeat a Chandra Spitfire was not lost on me when I played against it.
Yeah.
I think this card is... I think it's good in this deck, though. But, like, I think this deck is missing, like, some Arboreal Grazers, don't you? Like, I think I'd almost even rather have Grazers than some of this, like, cast-down trophy action early.
Well, I think it's in for a penny, in for a pound. I think that if you're going to go the Arboreal Grazer route, you kind of got to get in for, like, the circuitous route. Like, you got to either be turbo, or you got to be playing kind of a grindy backup plan. And I think Arboreal Grazer is just very poor for... Like, Arboreal Grazer is not really on message with the lots of removal and some 2-for-1s and a lot of threats. Arboreal Grazer is a lot more of a, I really want to do it. I want to race. I want to go I want to go faster. But maybe
that
could be. Maybe it's okay.
I think this deck wins on Plan A, like way more than, like I don't know, like 40% of the time probably.
Which one's even Plan A?
It's just sideways 5/6.
Oh, I was going to say because the Bant Scapeshift deck, Plan A is Scapeshift.
Yeah, there's barely a Plan B in the Bant Scapeshift deck, right?
Yeah, I think this deck, I would not be surprised if Plan A is weird beatdown.
What do you think about Unmoored Ego as the hate card? I mean, that's pretty good, right? It's choose a card name, right? So a lot of the time you can't choose like a land, but this one you can choose. You can just choose Field of the Dead, right?
Yeah,
that's way better than choosing Scapeshift because you take Plan C away as well.
Well, Scapeshift's not that good of a card if they don't have any Field of the Dead.
Wait, that's what I'm saying, right? So like. You take away Plan A, and you take away Plan C.
Yeah, but you do got to get them before they get one of the Field of the Deads in play. Which, I mean, it only costs 3. You can do it. You know, it's not that hard. It's just if you're playing, they're going to want to play it as soon as they can get it anyway. But yeah, if you have a chance to snag Field of the Dead with Unmoored Ego, I think it's a nice play.
These decks are so crazy to me because they have like 28, 29 land, and I just like.
And tons of cards that draw more land.
Yeah, and I'm just like chattering my teeth, and I'm like, is it one of these games where like I hit my first 5 land drops and I can't actually cast anything? Like, I can just totally imagine that because the lands are so mismatched. You're just like Blast Zone.
No, it's not the mana's not worse. It's just you're playing some stuff like he's got Dismal Backwater instead of one of the Watery Graves. You know, like your mana's weird. But you got enough of all your colors. That's never going to be your problem. You got so much stuff. I also, for what it's worth, I would not play only 3 Field of the Deads. I would play 4.
Yeah. Just go to 30 land, 61 cards.
No. Just cut something at random besides the 3 Field of the Dead.
So talk to me about Golos in this deck. So obviously Golos is really powerful if you get it online. But like the extremely complicated color spread here, which is Werborg plus, kind of implies that you had some things going for you before Golos hit, right? Isn't that kind of like the strong implication?
Well, you don't need Golos to be online yet for it to be a powerful threat, right? Like once you have one of your lands in play, and that is part of the reason why there's only 3 Golos and 4 Cavalier of Thorns. But the Golos, if you ever do get it online, is such a powerful endgame.
I mean, yeah, you could just be spitting Scapeshifts out, right? Like it's not even a thing.
Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna want to work on this one a little bit more. I guess I'd have to see it in action a little bit more. But I also think it helps reveal just how much we're only scratching the surface of what Scapeshift has in store, let alone this format. The Boros Feathers deck didn't really have anything too new, but the Orzo Vampire deck, to me, I wonder what else you can do here besides just play Ashiok. Are you supposed to play more discard?
I mean,
I think go ahead. Sorry.
There's 4 duress, right? How much more discard do you want to play?
I don't know, as much as it takes. I don't think this is a good matchup right now for Orzo Vampires.
I think if you're like duress plus Ashiok, that's like a lot. Like I think so. What is this deck siding in? If you're playing that matchup, you bring in duress in Gideon Blackblade. You might bring in Noxious Grasp, right? Like it's not Noxious Grasp isn't even that exciting. It's just like a card that has text.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kills Teferi.
Yeah, it has some text. It's not like phenomenal, right? I mean, you can randomly take out one of their blockers, and it does kill Hydroid Crassus. That's fine. I certainly would rather have it than Mortify or Cast Down.
Did you see the classic results from this past weekend?
I did.
There's a a little bit different of a spread over there. I don't know if the metagame was just a little bit different. I mean, obviously we see second and third place being Bant Scapeshift, so clearly the impact ended up being felt with Bant mid-range coming out on top. But the rest of the deck, I mean, fourth and fifth are mono red.
Oh yeah, and
it's kind of like previous level mono red.
but one of them is actually Aaron Barrich running it back, but he played a completely different deck.
Well, he put his Chandra Spitfire actually in the sideboard this time.
And he only played 2 in the sideboard.
Yeah.
And instead he's got 2 copies of Chandra Acolyte of Flame and 3 Experimental Frenzies in the main deck.
Dylan Donegan with Jund Dinosaurs, going all the way up to 3 Gultas.
So Jund Dinosaurs also won the Open, right? The standard portion of the Open. This deck is coming together. Like, they're picking a lot of the cards, very, very similarly, even though there's like a wide spread of cards they could be choosing that they're not right now. Like, we're seeing a lot of like Drover the Mighty, Otepec Huntmaster. Obviously, Marauding Raptor at 2 is extraordinarily exciting. And then
I like the flame sweep in the sideboard that Corey played. Corey Bowmaster.
Yeah, Dylan has Flame Sweep in the sideboard also. I mean, that's an instant speed card that can certainly kill some 2/2 zombie tokens, yeah? Yeah, the thing that I really like the best, I think, about the Dinosaurs decks is just like 4 Shifting Ceratops in the main deck. Like, it's very, very on plan for them, obviously, being a dinosaur. And it's like kind of pre-sideboarding against some of the dominant strategies. How do you feel about Rotting Regisaur? Like, I mean, I guess that card is ginormous.
Maybe. I don't know, man. I just am not as big of a Rotting Regisaur guy as these people. I mean, I get that it's so good with Otepec Huntmaster and Marauding Raptor in particular, but, like, I don't know, man.
This deck is very bad against Wilderness Reclamation deck, right? Like, I don't even see a plan to win game 1.
Yeah, I guess I just don't believe in this deck against Scapeshift either.
It is,
but I don't know.
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe you can Ashiok in the sideboard? Probably not. There's not enough black, right?
Yeah, I also just don't think it's gonna. Yeah, you can't do nothing. You have to be also somewhat aggressive. But what do you think of Keith Capstick's Esper Hero deck? 2 Bolas the Citadel, kind of becoming the industry standard to play 1 or 2 of those.
Yeah, I think, like, I don't even really get it. Like, I mean, people are playing
Bolas the Citadel?
Yeah, it seems weird to me, right? It's powerful, right? But, like, even, like, the good players who are playing it often just side it out.
So, to me, it looks like it's kind of an experimental frenzy.
I mean...
Right, like,
Yes, I agree. It's very much like that.
Like, there's just so many decks that just don't have... that don't put pressure on your life total.
Like, I don't think that these decks are... Well, I guess you can make, like, a ton of tokens with your Hero Precinct 1, and you get the Fireball off.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, I think that's...
I think you just want the extra cards, though. Yeah, I think it's the extra cards that you're in it for.
Oh, yeah, it's easy to reset your top of your library if you have Narset, etc.
The 10 life part is mostly, like, when somebody has root snares and stuff like that, you know?
Oh, that's nice.
Beyond that, the only other, just outside the top 16, but Corey Lurch with Grixis, hey, including a return of God Eternal Kefnet.
I love God Eternal Kefnet.
This is a deck that could definitely Ashiok.
So,
I'm in, by the way, for Ugin the Ineffable over Liliana these days.
In Grixis, yeah?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm a huge Ugin the Ineffable fan, given the fact that I played most, like, 4x Ugin the Ineffable second half of all last season. I'm just surprised that you think that way in this Dragon deck.
Now, I happen to generally play 1 Ugin, 1 Chandra, rather than 2 Ugin. But I like Ugin, and I think Liliana is not really lined up right for this day and age.
This is not a great God Eternal Kefnet deck.
No, I don't like God Eternal Kefnet that much in this deck. I like God Eternal Kefnet, the card, sometimes. I don't think it's a great time in the format for the card. And I don't think this deck makes particularly good use of it.
I feel like this deck is light about 4 boluses.
Well, I would definitely start by swapping a couple of these God Eternal Kefnets into the 4th Dragon God and then a 3rd Narset. And then I would find a room for a 4th Narset. Probably cut it and enter the God Eternals or something because I'm lame. But, like, you want more Nicol Bolas the Ravager?
I want 4 Nicol Bolas the Ravager, I want 4 Nicol Bolas Dragon God, and, like, it's too easy to win when you have those boluses, right? Like, maximize it.
Is it?
Like, yeah, like, if you actually land those cards, people get messed up. Like, I don't like this creature spread at all, actually. Like, I love Thief of Sanity. I think I like it as a sideboard card in this archetype, and I think a Hostage Taker is a woefully low power creature in this deck. It's kind of horrible, actually. Like a 2/3 for 4 in main deck. You have all kinds of things that are going to kill it.
I don't like the creatures in this. If I were going to play Grixis, I think that Nicol Bolas the Ravager is the only one that I'm really taking the memo for, or taking the phone call from.
I like Augur of Bolas.
But I personally, I'm not even
sure.
sure
The right tools, but not necessarily.
I don't think it's a great time for him either. You could. I mean, it's a good card, but I want to play Duress main deck, man. That's the kind of Grixis player I am.
I could live with that. I think, like, if I'm going to play God Eternal Kefnet, I want cards like Radical Idea, Opt, right? Those cards are really, really, like, they're fine, right? Like, Opt is great.
I can't not play Opt in this deck. Yeah, but I can't not play Opt anyway. Like, I'm just going to play Opt in this deck. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're going to play God Eternal Kefnet, you're definitely going to play Opt, right? Like,
yeah,
like, that's literally, like, those cards were made for each other.
Does Marquise Johnson's Team Elementals deck do anything for you?
Not really. I think
kind of just backwards. I just meant the Neoform part.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like Temur Elementals was this thing that people are, like, pretty excited about because all the cards went together, but it like never impressed me as, like, the payoff. Like, this deck has 3 Leafkin Druids. How does that make sense?
Presumably he's making room for some more Thunderkin Awakeners.
I mean, I don't think that Temur Elementals is the best implementation of Leafkin Druid and Risen Reef in Standard. I think that I would rather just not play red, not get Omnath, but then play, like, more Cavalier of Thorns and max out on cards like Mass Manipulation and just have, like, more consistent mana and just, like, push the things that you can push. Now, I understand you're missing payoffs, like, he's not even playing Big Chandra, right? Like, I guess he's got Little Chandra Overgrowth Elemental. Like, that's just so easy to answer. Like, Overgrowth Elemental is a 3/2 creature the turn that it comes down. Like, if you're like lacing together, like, your dream of unopposed permanence, is Chandra Acolyte of Flame Overgrowth Elemental really the hill you want to die on? I mean, like, we're already positing my 3-drops are going to resolve and nobody's going to stop me from doing my thing. I could dream bigger. That's all, you know?
I mean, part of it is that this is a Thunderkin Awakener deck, right? Like, you put the Overgrowth Elemental counters on the Thunderkin Awakener, and then it makes your Thunderkin Awakener better. And Neoform, you sacrifice things and get that extra sweet value from Overgrowth Elemental. I don't think it's enough, but that's ostensibly what's going on here, right? And then you've got Scampering Scorcher, right? Is so that you have the ability to convert into more tokens, or you can take your Scampering Scorcher and convert it into a Cavalier of Thorns. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me.
I guess I buy it. I mean, I just like. And it was so.
I thought it was clever. It's an interesting, different take on the Elemental deck.
But I mean, if you're gonna go the Neoform Thunderkin Awakener route, like, isn't it worth investing in more copies? Like, those are the signature cards.
Maybe. It might also just be that you don't want to disrupt the whole Risen Reef with all elementals thing that's like your primary plan.
I mean, these guys are all elementals anyway. Other than...
Yeah.
So
no, but what I mean is that...
Why is there a Paradise Druid? One Paradise Druid, 3 Leafkin Druid. Paradise Druid isn't even an elemental. And it's inferior in most situations to a Leafkin Druid, right? Like, nobody attacks with the Paradise Druid, right? You don't want it to tap. Riddle me that one, Patrick.
So, let's see. Maybe it's a way to convert your Llanowar Elves with Neoform into the Paradise Druid so that it has hexproof. I don't know, man. I would play Leafkin Druid.
Yeah,
but like, let's say you need your colors, right? Like, you don't have any red mana.
All right.
I don't know, man. I'm stretching here.
Yeah, but you can't pick. Like, you're going to use one of your 2 precious Neoforms to get the Paradise Druid?
And I'm sacking my Llanowar Elf to try to fix my mana?
This is not the plan that I'm on. No, thank you. All right.
Oh, dude, I think all you really want to do, and besides all this other stuff looks fancy, I think all you in reality are going to want to do is either go get turn anything into a Risen Reef or turn a Risen Reef into an Omnath.
I don't want to turn a Risen Reef into an Omnath because Risen Reef is too baller, but Omnath is a great payoff if you're going to play red, no question. Creeping Trailblazer is also a great payoff if you're going to play red. I think that, like, it's defensible to go Teamer. I just personally don't want to.
All right. So next week, what do you think, man?
Next week, I mean, it's just going to be, burn at the top of Barcelona. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I know, but for Standard.
Oh, I like Simic Flash the best. I think that Simic Flash is well positioned generally, and also potentially has the tools to beat Scapeshift.
Yeah, Simic Flash is the deck that's most appealing to me, but I also am going to want to try just sticking Ashiok into things like a Grixis deck. Either way, I think this Scapeshift deck is the real deal, and I think that people got to be careful to not assume that the Scapeshift deck isn't. The Scapeshift deck's going to continue to evolve. We've only just begun.
Agree across the board.
In life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state.